Thank you, Chair. The meeting is live on YouTube and being recorded, so over to you. I think you're on mute, Chair.
Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you for indulging my practice run there. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's virtual Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group meeting, 25th of January 2021. I'm your Chair, Councillor Paul Arnott, and welcome to anyone watching the meeting via live streaming, which you can find on YouTube. All participants here today are taking part remotely, as well as being live streamed, and it's being recorded, so please bear by the code of conduct throughout and be careful with your language. We reserve the right, in the unlikely event of anybody disrupting the meeting, to remove any participants. Please turn any telephone devices to silent. As this meeting is dependent on internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a break in the connection or loss of power, please bear with us and we will try to reconnect. If after 15 minutes we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting to be adjourned and reconvene at a later date with details on the committee page of our website. Could you please make sure your microphones are muted throughout, unless you're speaking, and as ever grateful if you don't repeat points that have already been made at great length. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All the councillors present today have been sent the agenda. Any members of the public who wish to view it can do so by visiting our website, eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now ask Sarah to start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. And you have confirmed you're present, please mute your microphone again. Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Hayward.
Present.
Councillor Ledger.
Present.
Councillor Armstrong.
Been delayed, I believe.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Coleman.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Hookway.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Present.
Councillor Wibley.
Present.
Councillor Chris Wright.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Gazzard.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Sarah, and welcome members. Thank you for being here today. Today's agenda, just so that we have an idea where we're going, and for members of the public, I think, to have an understanding of it as well. We'll have public speaking in a moment. Then we'll come to the terms of reference for this committee and an update report from Tim Child. After that, we come to the CEO of LED, Peter Kilpin, to talk about the operation of the Ocean Centre. After that, which is now timely but critical, we are looking at the temporary uses for the Queen's Drive space coming up very soon in the spring and summer. And finally, we will be looking at the possibility of resourcing the work that we are discussing today further with the possibility of extra officers. So just to give you a kind of overview of where we're hoping to go today. I hope we come out with a lot of positive outcomes. We've now got public speakers, and the first I've got listed here is Catherine Causley. If Catherine or Sue, are you sort of queuing the public speakers in?
Yes, Chair. Catherine's in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. So,
unmuted.
Catherine, please, 3 minutes whenever you're ready, please.
1 minute, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry,
take
my child tried
don't
to
worry.
interrupt me.
You know, some of us start meetings on mute, so it can't get any worse. Okay, over to you.
Okay, sorry, let me begin. Exmouth could be the jewel in the East Devon crown. We as a tourist destination have so many things going for us. our golden beaches, scenic walks, beautiful countryside, and easy access from the motorway network and train station. I would encourage this expansion of the free-to-use parts of this development. The dinosaur park and adult seating and food stall areas is a huge success to my mind. It feels like a holiday attraction. And in the summer, it's a great place for musicians and artists to perform. The park for the children is a huge success, and I have friends from all over Devon that come just to use the facilities. The area is only just big enough as it is, and any plans which remove or downsize even part of it would compromise its attraction. I would like to see this area enhanced with a splash pool, similar to what Heavy Tree Park in Exeter has, which is 3 interconnected wading pools, and possibly a splash area with water fountain and sprinkler type arrangements. These are really popular for smaller children who want to swim in the sea, but obviously there's challenges there. The back part, where the outdoor cinema currently held, would be a great barbecue or picnic area with some covered seating bays, and this would be a huge draw to people coming to the beach for the day. A big part of our charm is the Victorian seafront with its grand white buildings and outdoor spaces, and more needs to be done to improve this area as a whole. Simply plonking a new bit amongst the tired and faded looking 1/3 of the seafront is not the sort of regeneration that is required. I know businesses such as cafes and cinemas raise revenue, but we must not develop the seafront at the expense of the town centre. Town centres, as we know them, are dying. This is the same all over the country, and we need to keep up with the pace of change. I do not believe we can look at sections of our town in isolation. We have good bones in Exmouth, but with the lack of investment, the whole area is looking decrepit. I know it's not part of the discussion today, but I think that this needs to be taken into account. The beach and the town are a 5-minute easy walk apart, but I think more signage is needed, judging by the amount of times I am stopped and asked for directions. My last plea would be that you embed green travel as part of any development at the start and not some sort of add-on, as is frequently seen. We have the opportunity, in fact, we must design this space for the future. Things are likely to change quickly with the climate emergency declaration, and we must ensure that all plans have an eye to the future. There is very limited bike parking along the seafront, and in the summer, many people bring their bikes onto the beach because there's nowhere to leave them. Our shared cycle path is unsatisfactory to all that use it, and it feels like a nod to active travel without any real financial commitment, and is the cause of a massive amount of moaning locally. We need to think, what will active travel look like in 10 to 30 years from now? I do not believe if we are serious about the climate emergency that simply switching to electric vehicles is the answer. How will we embed public transport so it's the easiest and quickest form of getting around?
Speaker.
Lastly, I believe there is a great need to provide some decent facilities for people who come to the area in campervans and motorhomes. They should have access to fresh water and toilets, as is seen on the continent. And this does provide a model to generate income. Kite surfers do not stay in boutique hotels. Thank you for giving me the chance to have a say, and I truly hope that this scheme can progress quickly and with the benefit of all that use it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. A really wonderful contribution. I'm sure that's all been noted. A lot of what you say, I know, is already being considered, but it's always worth saying this again, meeting after meeting, so that we don't lose the plot. As far as the sort of greater Exmouth, or perhaps I just call it Exmouth itself, is concerned, I hope you may be around to look at agenda item 8. Agenda item 9, actually, which is the one where we're looking at extra staff resource for all of this, which would include, prospectively, Exmouth, other parts of Exmouth as well. Thank you very much. Our next public speaker is Ron Pryke, speaking on behalf of Jeff Skinner of the Exmouth Community Association. Whenever you're ready, please, Ron. Roy, sorry. Oh, like me, Roy, you started on mute. You're still on mute, Roy.
You?
That's
Am I
it.
there
We're
now?
with you now. Okay, we'll
Fine,
start with
thanks
2
very much.
minutes when you start. Then off you go, please.
Thank you very much indeed, and good morning, everybody, from yet another day, beautiful day in the paradise that is Exmouth. I'm here, as you said, on behalf of the chairman of the Exmouth Community Association, we appreciate this opportunity to make another brief statement to you on the vital work of the development group. Jeff is actually attending a meeting of the Exmouth Town Council's COLP, the Community Organisation Liaison Panel. That is a well-established as an important process of communication between the council and the community. He does plan, Jeff Skinner does plan to attend future meetings of QDD to continue to make the constructive comments and proposals to the group in the way that the Exmouth Community Association has related to EDDC and the Town Council for the past 15 years. Perhaps it's worth noting, Chairman, that the ECA Management Committee includes 3 members of the steering group which produced the Exmouth Neighbourhood Plan, including the Chairman, that was me, and the Vice Chairman. For today, we've just got 3 points to make to you. The first is that we welcome the determination of the group to make early decisions on the temporary arrangements for use of the QDD space. The existing so-called meantime facilities have worked really well and have been appreciated by the increased and increasing number of people and children using the seafront throughout the year. And it's important to note that they're there in the winter as well, especially with the coronavirus around. And I want to endorse everything we just heard from that excellent contribution from Catherine Causley. Our second and main point is that we believe it's now time to build on the success of the development of Sideshore, even though it isn't quite open yet, but it is remarkable. We do appreciate the financial, the environmental and the social challenges you have in moving to phase 3, but we believe the momentum established by Sideshore needs to be maintained through bold decision-making and strategic planning, and that this will continue to meet the high standards of design and building which have been achieved already at Sideshore and with the road development around it. Finally, our third point is on the key issue of consultation with the public. The success of the referendum on the neighbourhood plan was based on going way beyond the national consultation procedures and surviving an inspection by an external inspector to see that we're doing everything well. We can only recommend to you perhaps as a starting point, a close study of how that
30 seconds, Speaker.
that was achieved. It's on page 12 of the neighbourhood plan. Community Association is ready to engage further with the development group in ways that you wish to suggest to assist in the development of a strategic plan to make the most of the QDD space for the benefit of residents and visitors. Thank you very much and good luck for the meeting.
Thank you very much, Roy. Again, I hope that the later agenda item 9, where we're looking at additional and dedicated officer support, if obviously subject to members' agreement, if that were to go through, that would make, I think, potentially for the first time, a really active point of contact from an officer within the council to be able to be in contact with groups such as your own. And it's quite easy otherwise for really great work, even like neighbourhood plans, to get lost, they get published. And so point absolutely taken there. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for that contribution. Right, so our third and final public speaker, please, is Daphne Courier. Daphne, are you there?
Hello, thank you. Exmouth Queen's Drive space is left with 3 areas which have been a drain on the public purse. Temporary permission has come to an end. Exmouth Town Council was very reluctant to fill in the ponds at the front of the site following a lively public protest. The food court area on top of the filled-in ponds needs replacing. The event space at the back is empty at present, and the temporary car park has been reclaimed for public leisure use, which was the original intended purpose of that area. A new lease of life is needed, but it must fulfill certain criteria. It needs to be economic to install and offer some free and some money-making facilities. And it should look ahead to a time when vaccination heralds a COVID-free future, when people are getting back to having social gatherings. Also, it must take into account the rapidly changing use of the seafront. Kite surfing lines are typically 20 to 27 metres long. Exmouth Beach is shrinking due to sand erosion. At times, the stretch of the beach to the east of the water sports centre is covered with kite lines laid out parallel. Walkers have to stay near the wall to avoid stepping over the kite lines and are obliged to keep away from the water's edge. This change is here to stay and will happen more often. All support to the water sports centre, but families do need other places to spread out. The Queen's Drive space could become the family fun zone, a family fun zone. The back of the site is hidden away, which could become a positive feature if it was renamed as the Secret Garden to draw attention to it. The ponds could be reinstated and all areas could be redeveloped to provide a modern attraction. The ponds area could retain the food outlets at the margins. They've gone well. Imagine either pond remodelled as a paddling pool with shallow steps and spray fountains for toddlers to play in. There are those in the town who would love to see the ponds area returned to a Pedalo Boats pond. It is worth thinking about because it made money for years and it could do so again. The Secret Garden could be turned into a managed barbecue area. It is a uniquely sheltered and wind-free space. If it were marked off into 4-metre corrals or squares, each containing a picnic bench, a parasol and a barbecue stand, it could...
30 seconds, speaker.
Sorry?
30 seconds left.
Oh, sorry.
Speaker.
It could provide a popular venue and you could buy barbecue food and get drinking water down there, and it would have to have a booking clerk so that it was properly managed. These ideas would not preclude a later development of the site into a more comprehensive community project. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Daphne. Again, all noted and heard by officers and members alike. Thank you. Okay, so that is the end of that agenda item, which was public speaking. So now we go on, please, to look at the minutes of our last meeting held on the 17th of November 2020. I will take them as agreed, unless somebody, and please do, wishes to raise a blue hand to say anything about those. So just looking for hands at the moment here. I can't see any, but then I can't see. Ah, yes. Oh, Steve, Councillor Steve Gazzard, yeah. Please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just an issue about the minutes. Last week on social media, there was quite a lot of talk of a lot of the general public are not being able to view the minutes online. I just wanted clarification that they are available to be viewed online, please.
Right, okay, that's a really very good question. Sue, are they available through the website? They should be, shouldn't they?
They should be, yes. We have a requirement to put them online after 5 days after the meeting, so they should be available to anybody who wants to see them. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Steve. We'll chase that up, though. Sometimes these things do slip through, so I'll follow that up, Steve, after the meeting and make sure that the draft minutes or the published minutes are going up within 5 days, as Sue has said. Thank you for that very much. Can I come to Joe Wibley, please, Councillor Joe Wibley?
Yeah, just to confirm, I'm looking at the minutes now. I don't know if there's some confusion because they appear as part of the agenda for this meeting, but I've just clicked on the link. They're perfectly yeah, you can see them.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Whibley. Councillor Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just asking on behalf of an Exmouth resident, actually, who's asking if the resolution on page 5 that the Chair would draft a proposal for scrutiny committee. She's asking if that has been done, because she thinks it's very important that scrutiny does see the processes that took place.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Yes, absolutely. The intention is to draft well, first of all, we need to ask permission of the Chair of Scrutiny to bring this to scrutiny, and the date will be the 4th of March. And so we need in the next couple of weeks to produce a document. I think we've learnt a lot in the last few months that will assist us to give a comprehensive report of our experiences and concerns. So yes, please do assure the member of the public that it will be put from this committee to scrutiny, and March the 4th, subject to the Chair's agreement, would be the date. Thank you. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to clarify the previous comment that was made about the availability of minutes, I think there is not confusion, but there is two ways of accessing the meeting data on the EDDC website. One is via the old Regeneration Board access, and that still lists the previous members and the previous minutes of this board. So if you Google that, I did raise that with an officer, and that has been annotated, I believe, to show that this is where you should be looking. So there are previous minutes available, but there, as Councillor Whibley and Councillor Ledger has provided us with, all the other ones are available. I'm looking at them now on the screen myself. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. So I'll just ask if Sarah and Sue, if you can just be very kind enough to just double check all that after the meeting and make sure these minutes are easily visible and not confused with historic ones. Thank you for that very much. Okay, so the next agenda item is apologies, please. Sue, do we have any apologies?
No apologies received, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. You sound surprised. I don't know, but yeah, no, good to see a packed house as ever. Okay, so can you help us through the agenda item 5, which is the declarations of interest, please?
Yes. Councillor Arnott, have you got any
None.
declarations?
None.
Councillor Haywood.
None, thank you, Sue.
Councillor Ledger.
And thank you, Sue.
Councillor Armstrong. I think Councillor Armstrong's just...
Sorry, none. I was on mute. None.
Sarah, if you're there, I think Sue has frozen. Are you able to pick that up?
Okay. Sue, are you still frozen there? We got to Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I am still here, Chair. I don't know if you can hear me. I have got a problem with my... Oh, I think I'm back online. Apologies,
Yeah, you're
Chair.
back on. We got to
just
Councillor
went...
Armstrong. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Councillor Armstrong, are you
None.
able to tell me if you... No, okay, thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Exmouth Town Council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey.
Yes, same, Sue, Exmouth Town Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Hookway.
Yes, please, Sue, a personal one. I was involved with Save Exmouth Seafront prior to my election to this council in May 2019, but I'm no longer involved, and I wish to confirm that I am not biased or predetermined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. Councillor Taylor.
None.
Councillor Whibley.
I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor in an adjoining ward.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, Chris Wright.
Personal one, Sue. I was a former tenant of the Queen's Drive redevelopment site.
Thank you. Councillor Aurora Bailey.
Yes, I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
Again, Exmouth Town Councillor, please, Sue.
Thank you. That's all, Chair. Over to you again.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, everyone, and Sue as well. Agenda item 6 is to look finally at the terms of reference for this Queen's Drive delivery group. And so we have Tim Child here, please, to present his report to update members. Tim, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is by far the briefest of my 3 reports for this morning. So it's quite straightforward, this one. The previously approved terms of reference were discussed back at the November delivery group meeting. At that meeting, it was put forward that the delivery group terms of reference also include for the development and management of the Ocean building. Subsequently, it went to Cabinet, it was agreed by Cabinet. So you now have a updated, approved, adopted terms of reference attached to my report. And you'll see that the second, so the only change is the second bullet point, halfway down the page, where we have included to provide a reference group of district and town councillors with officer support to make recommendations to East Devon District Council's Cabinet on the development and management of the Ocean building. That is the only change made to those terms of reference.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. So this is just for noting, really, members. It's we've discussed it here. It's gone back to Cabinet. We're now legit. We've got our terms of reference all nicely in a row. Would anybody like to say anything about that, please? If not, we'll just move straight on to the next item. Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on the representation from Exmouth Town Council. We've got the Mayor and a further councillor, which at the moment is obviously Aurora Bailey. But we always had the Town Clerk has been attending these meetings, and it seems to be missed off. Could you clarify that, please?
To be absolutely frank with you, Steve, that hadn't been raised before. I'm just looking at the wording on this at the moment. I can't see any difficulty at all. This is the Town Clerk to attend or as a voting member, or are you suggesting, Steve?
She's normally attended and been able to speak.
Yes. I think, so I'm desperately trying to find this report again.
Sorry, Chair, can I?
Yes, Tim, please.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. I think I could probably answer this one quite easily. So the Town Clerk is shown as a support officer alongside, for example, myself and various colleagues. So absolutely an attendee, but not a voting attendee. So you'll see under support officers on the terms of reference. So yeah, the Town Clerk is there, but not a voting member. But I think Councillor Gazzard, from what you're saying, she was never a voting member, so I don't think there's any change here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Yes, it's in the list of support officers, isn't it? Which is it's a very productive list. Right, thank you very much, Councillor Nick Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to reassure one of the public speakers who mentioned about consultation, I'm taking it that under the terms of reference, the phrase to support further engagement of public and stakeholders is in fact a phrase for consultation. That means consultation will take place.
Thank you, Councillor Hookway. I think that's exactly what that means.
Thank you.
And it flows on from the previous one, which is about external, expert and professional consultants and then, as you rightly say, the next one says to support further engagement of public and stakeholders. And yes, that engagement, I think, as far as any use of the English language is concerned, would include consultancy. There's not a problem with that, Tim, is there? I mean, that's, you know, you can't engage without consulting sometimes, can you?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Philip Skinner, please.
Thank you, Chair. And it's just a point, just to be cleared, is I see that the title is Exmouth Queen's Drive Delivery Group, and the word regeneration is not used at all. Is that absolutely correct? Is it? Is that the way that's going forward? Is that the title of it?
I don't. Since I've been involved with this, Philip, I just don't. We haven't used the word at all. I don't think it's ever been. It hasn't been used for a long time now. So yeah, it's the Queen's Drive Delivery Group. That's what it's doing. You know.
Yeah.
So
I think, from my point, just so as to clear, and the whole part of regeneration boards were set up years ago, actually by the Labour Party, under Tony Blair's regime at the time. And it was to engage, regeneration boards were set up to engage between local authorities and private sector to drive forward projects that people wanted to, or local authorities wanted to particularly have, if you mind, an expert opinion and a help and guidance in pushing the private sector through the public sector as well, in working together. And that was fine. By changing the name of it, of course, which you quite rightly point out, means that that's taken away from that, and that's fine. And that's absolutely fine. I'm just trying to clear ground. That was also, as we all know where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think that there won't be anything there. I mean, it's good to point that out, unless we engage with the private sector. I suppose one might comment, and this will come up at the end of the meeting, and refers to the referral to scrutiny for the 4th of March. I do wonder how the previous regeneration process dealt with the private sector and loyal servants to the community previously, but that's for another discussion. Right, thank you very much. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to come back on Councillor Skinner's point, yes, there are 2 current live projects, although they both have been sort of fairly in abeyance. That's Axminster over in the east, and Exmouth in the west. I think the focus here is on Queen's Drive Delivery Group. The clue's in the name. It's Queen's Drive, and no one here would disagree that Exmouth Town Centre needs some love, it needs some investment, it needs some inspirational thinking, creativity, and that has got to involve working with the commercial sector. You know, the entire centre of Exmouth is a commercial hub. But I think where the problem has been is, if you merge the 2 together, you create this just huge project that's just beyond the realm of anyone. Each thing is so huge, by trying to merge them together, you just achieve nothing. So I think what's aimed, the aim of this group is to concentrate on Queen's Drive. There will be repercussions, there will be benefits for the town centre. The 2 are in synergy with each other. But I think the issue of Exmouth regeneration is that, and Tim, who's with in the meeting today, and other officers, and indeed those officers from the economic perspective, they're working on those. And I believe that when the pipeline document comes out shortly, I can assure Councillor Skinner that that regeneration of Exmouth and Axminster are still on those, because they are still high profile. They're almost considered the 2 most important regeneration projects in the district. But I think for this focus, it's Queen's Drive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hayward. That's very useful to help our understanding on all of that. So in which case, on the terms of reference, Sarah, we are simply noting them, aren't we, really? There's nothing else I think we have to do. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Okay. All right, those are then duly noted. Thank you. Please shout if I've done anything terribly wrong at any point. Right, we now move on to agenda item 7, which is LED's report on the operation of the Ocean centre on the seafront in Exmouth. And we have had a written report from Peter Gilpin, or there's a written account from him, and thank you for that, Peter. And so over to you to present your report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Hopefully you can all hear me. So I did provide a concise report, and I'm hoping it's been circulated and read by members of the delivery group, but I appreciate there were people sitting in and listening in who might not have seen it. So with your permission, I'll run through it as quickly as I can and just provide a quick summary of the relationship between LED, Ocean and the council. So LED has a 25-year lease of Ocean. We're into our 6th year. I think it's important to point out that we run this as a commercial operation, which is completely separate and independent from our leisure centre activities, which we run for the council. So none of the support fee paid to LED, either under normal circumstances or under the current COVID crisis, none of that support service fee is funneled into Ocean. It is entirely a separate functioning activity, and up until the first lockdown in March, before that it was making a profit. So the relationship between Ocean and the council is that LED is a tenant and the council are the landlord, and it is entirely a commercial lease. A fairly large rent is paid by LED to the council, and that's just been confirmed again last year. I probably don't think it's appropriate to release that figure, but it is very significant and provides a significant revenue to the council. And obviously I think there were quite a few papers last year about that and the reason for the commercial purchase. So just moving on to my other bits in the report. LED is a community benefit society registered with the Financial Conduct Authority. So although we are charitable and have charitable status, we come under the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, not the Charity Commission. And we therefore have accounts which we have to present legally and formally to the FCA, and they result, they're really based on our charitable activities. And that's where it gets a little bit complicated when you see some of the reports and comments about Ocean. So within Ocean, believe it or not, 10-pin bowling is a sporting activity and therefore a charitable activity under LED Community Leisure's umbrella. But a lot of the other activities are not charitable. So providing a bar and restaurants, for example, functions and events, they are not charitable activities. So they have to be reported separately. So we have a commercial trading subsidiary which deals with the income from food and beverage, functions and events, and from the soft play. The soft play used to be considered a physical activity and a charitable activity, but HMRC took the view a couple of years ago that it wasn't. So that is now a non-charitable activity. So that income, along with the food and the beverage and the functions and events, has to go through our trading subsidiary and is accounted for separately. And I have in the report provided the accounts, or the bottom line figure for LED Enterprise, the trading subsidiary, which for the last 3 years has provided a relatively modest profit, but that profit is then donated, if you like, to LED Community Leisure, the parent charity. So those figures are there on Company's House for everybody to see. I don't mind sharing them. 2017, we made nearly a £35,000 profit. 2018 wasn't so good. I think that was a hot summer. We made about £9,000 profit. And in 2019, our last full trading year, the commercial enterprise made about a £46,000 profit. So it is profitable. Those profits go back into the charitable parent company, LED Community Leisure, which helps us run that charity obviously more economically. Obviously 2020 is yet to be accounted for, and we're inevitably going to show a loss because we were shut for 4 months and some of those months were peak holiday periods. So after 3 years of profit, we're likely to see a loss reported on Ocean and our trading subsidiary for 2020. But when we were open last summer, we had a fantastic period when we were open, and I think if we can open again for Easter or beyond this summer, we're going to see a really high profit and turnover, because people won't be going abroad and they'll be coming to Exmouth, which is great news. I think the last comment I've got to make, which is the bottom line of my report for those who've seen it, Ocean's turnover, and I think this is a really important point actually, because a lot of people think Ocean, and I've seen it described as a white elephant in the press by one or two people. Well, our turnover is over 2 million at Ocean. We employ around 75 local people, and we purchase as much as we can from local suppliers. And my calculations show that Ocean is actually putting about £1.5 million a year back into the local economy under normal circumstances. So that's a whistle-stop tour of my report, Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions, and I hope that that provides some clarity on the relationship between the three entities of Ocean, LED and the Council.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. That's very helpful. And I know you don't take any offence that this committee wishes to ask the questions. It's very important that everybody understands it. And your point is extremely well taken about the turnover of 2 million and the employment that's there and the amount of money put back into the local economy. So thank you for all the work you're doing there at the moment, especially in these very difficult circumstances. Can I ask for members who are outside of the delivery group who are attending, if anybody would like to make a comment or ask a question, please do raise a hand. A lot of satisfied customers there, Peter. I can't see anybody.
I knew Mr. Skinner would spoil things.
In he comes, and also Steve Gazard. Are you raising a hand there as well?
Yes, Chair.
I'm going to go with Steve Gazard first, then, if that's okay. Go on.
I'm quite happy for Mr. Skinner to go first, if you like, Chair, as he got in before me.
All right, he can warm up for you. Okay, Councillor Skinner, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think I didn't want it to go without anything being said at all, of course, because the work that LED does for East Devon is actually fantastic, and it's phenomenal, and it's really sad times that obviously Peter and his team have not been able to actually operate because of the conditions of which in the last getting on now for 12 months under this pandemic have not been able to operate. But what I do believe is that the creation of sport and health and well-being is absolutely vital in the way that we're going forward. And the Ocean building itself, and the many times that I've been in there, has been just a revelation, really, in upgrading Exmouth from what it was. And Chair, yourself, you may or may not know, and other members, that I spent many years looking at Exmouth, what was the old swimming pool site as it was, that was derelict for goodness knows how many years. I dread to think how many it was. Other members might know more than I, but it must have been 10, 12, getting on for nearly 15 years that it was derelict, and it was in a real bad state. So it's fantastic that we got this building there. And let's face it, at the end of the day, the Ocean building was put up as well through previous administrations, and it was just a little bit prior to my time in some respects of its evolution and coming forward, was put up at a time when there was lots of public consultation. And one of the things that the members of the public of Exmouth wanted was a bowling alley. And it had a bowling alley for many, many years. And then we didn't have one. And now we do have one. And I wish it all great success. So from my perspective, it is absolutely vital that we keep LED, the Ocean building, the investment in the Ocean building. And I think once we can get through troubled waters, I think and get to clearer waters, I think it has a wonderful future in its offer, and the deliverance of the other opportunities that will come to Exmouth with its offer that it has in Exmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. And absolutely agree with all you say. I think just add a little asterisk there that it wasn't universally welcomed by local people when it was built. And I think there was an argument at the time about, it's not a white elephant, but it's certainly an elephant because it has an extra floor, doesn't it? Which was perhaps went a bit further than some local people want it. But that's, as you say, that's like what you said. That's the historic past now, isn't it? Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I wondered whether Councillor Skinner's got X-ray vision, because I've got a lot of those things written down, so I won't go through those again. I just really wanted to thank Peter for the excellent report, which is very good. And I just really wanted to praise what LED and in particular Ocean do for Exmouth. And as you rightly said, Chair, the only problem is the top floor, as Peter probably knows very well. That does just cause a lot of problems if you want to have a big venue there, and obviously for catering facilities. But I just wanted to highlight what Peter said, was that it does a wonderful job for Exmouth. It does employ so many people, and rightly so, you said 75. But I think a lot of the confusion through you, Chair, is that people generally do not understand that LED is, as you rightly said, Peter, is split into two separate sections. Is there any way that that can be clarified for the public? Because there is this misconception that, you know, the district council are throwing money at it and it should be paying for itself, but the public do not understand that there are two separate sections in the way that LED runs. So just wondering whether there's anything that can be done to try and clarify that, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gazzard. That's a tricky one, Peter, isn't it? Really, if you know, unless you rebrand LED Enterprises as something else. But I mean, what? It's a job of explanation, really, isn't it, as you're doing today? But what would you comment on that?
Yeah, the confusion arises because of the income within Ocean has to be split within the charity and within the trading subsidiary. So Ocean, it would be nice if Ocean could be Ocean Limited and everything go through one set of accounts so that it was a much more transparent operation. And I'm happy to be transparent with it, but unfortunately, the way we have to report to the FCA and the Charity Commission and Companies House is we have to split the income into two companies, one into the charity, which gets the bowling income and a bit of other income, and then the rest of this has to go into the trading subsidiary. So we can't really show accounts for Ocean. And to be honest, I think it would be a bit confusing if we did, because it isn't reported like that. I think it's about this meeting helps, and I think we have been slowly over the few years we've been operating, well, I say we're into our 6th year, starting to get the message across. I think the other issue we face, and I would thank Councillor Skinner for his support and Councillor Gazzard, but I think we took over under very unfortunate circumstances as well, that the previous management had made a real pig's ear of the management and left under a cloud owing staff money. And of course Ocean had a terrible reputation when we first took over, and it's taken all this time, I think, to begin to turn that reputation around. But I think we're doing that. I know we had a storming summer and we were really busy turning people away in the summer, and I think Ocean will, when we get open again, have another summer like that. So it's about constantly reaffirming the positive messages about Ocean, and I think they are starting to get through, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Peter. Councillor Nick Hookway, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes. Leading on from what Councillor Gazzard was saying, and in relation really to the top floor of the Ocean building, I speak to a lot of people who, like me, walk past the Ocean building on a fairly regular basis when conditions permit, and discuss about the future of the top floor and why it is hardly ever used. And I think I want to stress, absolutely stress, that what I'm talking about is Ocean and not LED, right? And I fully appreciate that people work very hard, and I want to thank them for their hard work. But in terms of a seafront and the facility of a seafront, the top floor doesn't appear to be working. I know that people have had weddings there, and that must have been a fabulous experience. But I've also heard people say that weddings can't take place on Ocean because of the charges. And now whether that is true or not, I'm quite happy to listen to Peter who says. But what I do want to say is I think that the job of this group is to sort out and find out what are the issues that are stopping the top floor being used and see if we can in some way get those resolved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hookway. Obviously now we understand and have had endorsed our terms of reference. The ocean will remain as a standing item on all the agendas. So we'll have another meeting. I think it's the 11th of March is our next one. So again, I think that gives an opportunity for everybody to contribute again and to assess how that's going. But I think it's fantastic that such a significant structure, and it is an amazing building, has got a sort of friendly and critical, if necessary, committee working alongside it. I hope all members and the public welcome that. Councillor Chris Wright, please. Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Peter's probably answered in some way what I wanted to raise. With the account side of things, with LED Enterprises, that encompasses both Ocean and the Pavilion. To get a true indication of how those two venues are performing, I just wondered whether that was appropriate to, you know, when you look at the figures on the profit before tax, whether or not there is an element of trying to get some clarity for members on how those two operations actually come together in the one set of accounts. The other thing I wanted to do was to add my support to anyone who's in the leisure hospitality industry at the moment. These are very difficult times and have been a very challenging 12 months. So, you know, I would like to add my thanks to Peter and the team for doing what they've been able to do over the course of time. But it's just the clarity on the Pavilion and the Ocean being in the same set of accounts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. That doesn't seem like asking the world, does it? That we should be able to, as you say, before everything goes into Companies House, it should be quite easy to see. And the council will need to know anyway. I don't know if Charlie Plowden is here today. Forgive me if he is, I can't see him. But we obviously need to know as a council how the Pavilion's doing as well. So there shouldn't be any reason not, you know, we're running a theatre there. I would say we, but LED are running a theatre there and also the Ocean Centre. So, I mean, Peter, presumably there's no reason not to provide those figures separated out in some way, albeit perhaps in confidence.
Yeah, Chairman, what worries me, with all due respect, is that if we're not careful, start getting into micromanaging Ocean through this group, which I appreciate it's now on the remit, but as I pointed out in my report, it's a commercial operation with a commercial lease. The priority really is to ensure that it's viable and sustainable and paying your rent, which is a commercial return to the council, rather than, I would say, getting involved in the micromanagement of Ocean. I mean, for example, to correct Councillor Nick Hookway's perception, and it is a perception, the top floor is viable and very busy at times. So obviously, we've been hit hard now by the COVID restrictions. If we were open, we've got 15 weddings booked this summer, and the pricing is obviously working. That's 50, you know, the wedding season starts May, 15 weeks. That's almost a wedding a week through to September. So, and there are lots of other events as well. And we are on top of the management, and we're very keen to manage both Ocean and the Pavilion as effectively and professionally as we can. And I would worry about this group starting to get into micromanagement and losing its focus on the direction of Queen's Drive, which Ocean wants to see developed and improved, because we don't want to be the end of the road. We want to be the start of that development and very much a crucial, critical partner within that development. And we do provide detailed reports and accounts. The Pavilion accounts are provided in their entirety to the council under our leisure management contract, because the Pavilion comes under that contract. And I think the micromanagement and accounts of Ocean are, as I say, difficult to untangle. I would be prepared to do that, perhaps, Councillor, on a confidential basis with a with a smaller group of councillors, but I'm a bit reluctant to start to discuss those in public in these meetings, if I'm honest.
No, I can understand that, Peter, and it's kind of a new way of working, isn't it? Really, I wouldn't call it micromanagement, but I can see how obviously no company wants to have, you know, full open book out in a public meeting. Can I come to our strategic lead for finance? I'm not sure. Again, sorry, Simon, if you're there. Yes, you are. Thank you. I mean, is there a way within the council that we can receive confidentially a report? So obviously we are the landlord as well, and I know that only gives us certain rights on that. But I think we'd all like to understand within LED Enterprises, is there any risk at any point that the theatre is cross-subsidising the ocean or vice versa, so that we can have an understanding? I mean, Simon, how can we receive that information, albeit perhaps confidentially?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We do receive that information in terms of we get quite detailed management accounts which link back to the financial reports for all the activities, which includes pavilion, all the leisure centres. So the areas that East Devon provides a subsidy on, we see the full costs, full figures, and those are completely transparent and have been presented to the LED monitoring group before now. We can present them to the forum. So from the council's point of view, and its payment of subsidy to LED for leisure and culture activities, I think that is clear and transparent. I suppose the only questions that members may have in their minds that perhaps myself and Peter and Bridget may be able to explore a bit further is obviously the one area might be around the cross allocation of staff and management costs, because they will be split between the differing operations. I'm not sure whether that's the concern, but that's the only area, the overheads, some of the overheads that I think may become a little bit grey in terms of where they sit. So we can look at that side of it. But in terms of the transparency that Peter's describing, that is already in place.
Okay, so Simon, just let me ask a stupid layman's question. At the end of the day, if I or somebody else, a member, rings you up and says, has it been a good year for the theatre? You would be able to say, yeah, fantastic. They turned over this and the profit was that. And you say, has it been a good year for the ocean? You say, yeah, fantastic. They turned over that and the profit was that. That simple information, is that available to members, if perhaps through the LED monitoring forum or through here? Is that something we can understand moving forward?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just coming back to Chris Wright, Councillor Wright, is that what you were thinking of?
That's what I was getting at. Absolutely right. So, as you know, that clearly is something that it would appear is in place, and that is able to be looked at. It's just with two operations, it's handy to know, you know, is one having to support the other more? And as a council, do we need to look at that with those two operations on the seafront?
Okay, thank you, Chris. We're all friends here. That's the thing. So nobody's, you know, we just like to have maximum understanding all round. Councillor Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you, Peter, for a very useful and interesting report. And I appreciate also your understanding of the public attitude to the ocean, which I think it will turn around. It's a not unattractive building, and I think it is an asset to the seafront. I have to declare an interest here because I've actually played in a band a couple of times on the top floor, and I think it's a fantastic space. And the first time I played up there, I sort of went for a walk in the interval and walked out onto the balcony outside, and thought, what a fantastic view! You know, this is a fantastic venue, and deserves to be well used. On the bowling, in a past life, I was a primary school teacher, and if I asked kids what they wanted to see in Exmouth, it was always bowling, because they all used to go up to Exeter for the bowling. But I wonder these days, because these things tend to go in fashions, how well patronised that is. So I just wonder if you could clarify that, just how much use did the bowling actually get?
Peter, if you like, please.
I can't give you specific numbers, but it's quite a popular activity, and obviously it's quite weather dependent as well, because when you're all down here on holiday in Exmouth and it starts to rain, all of a sudden we're full, and when it's hot and sunny, we're quiet. I can tell you that the bowling turns over £450,000 a year. That's not an insignificant activity. So it is quite an attractive thing, and you're quite right, Councillor Davey and Councillor Skinner, that bowling is an attractive activity, and I think a crucial one for tourist destinations as well as for local residents.
Thank you, Peter. I can envisage Team Davey versus Team Skinner down there one day when COVID is lifted. Councillor Skinner, you still got your yellow hand up. Very happy for you to come back, or is that a ghost?
Yeah. No. That's. Thank you, and I wanted the opportunity because obviously several speakers have spoken now, and I really wanted to pick up on a couple of points from a couple of councillors. And Councillor Gazzard mentioned the part about LED and the perception a few moments ago when he spoke about the perception from people about it being subsidised. I'm not sure that's really part of what the Deliverance Exmouth Delivery Group should be focused on. I would have thought that was more of a point for LED for that group, and so that was that, because of course it's very difficult to put a cost of what LED is across as a principle, and I'm not sure we want to get too involved in the debate, but of course what we do want to do is provide a service to keep people healthy, and the health and wellbeing agenda and that going forward, and that's a different debate. And then I move on to Councillor Hookway, who suggested that then the perception of some people is that and Peter Gilpin answered it extremely well, the perception of the top floor is not very well and how we look at doing that. I don't believe that is a part and a role of a district authority to look at that. And Peter Gilpin as well, well done, Peter, you answered it extremely well. And there was an inference from Councillor Hookway that there was a perception of how we, and I assumed what he meant by we was we as a local authority, look at how we can make that better. It's not the remit of this group, and it's not the remit of the council to get involved into those debates, and that certainly needs to be put in the bin. I'm sure, Chair, you're going to do that. The other place to have these debates is ensuring that when we're talking about LED, there's not a lap over between this particular group and the LED group. The LED group that actually look at what they're doing. And I wonder, Chair, whether or not some of these conversations need to be looking more at the deliverance and not actually about LED itself and how it runs its business. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that was apparent, Councillor Skinner, but thank you for reiterating that. So, of course, I set up with colleagues the thing that hadn't existed before, an LED monitoring forum with a cross-party membership, and I think that showed some real vision because, as it turns out, because of the tragic national events, it's going to need a friend in the council, and so that's what the LED monitoring forum is for. And I know that Peter is engaging and will engage in that fully. Our terms of reference, as agreed, do include the ocean, and so what happens in the ocean will continue to be discussed at this committee ad infinitum. We are the landlord of the building, and although we do not wish to micromanage, we must, in the public interest, understand what is going on there at all times, just in case we might have some good advice. Right, thank you very much. Now, just having a look, do we have any more speakers on this? Councillor Andrew Coleman, please.
So, yeah, just a quick word about the ocean and the top floor. Just one suggestion: I just thought it'd be an ideal location for conferences. So, I wonder when enough has been done potentially to advertise it as a conference venue. I'm sure there's a number of groups who could potentially make use of such a facility if it's not overpriced, I suppose. Thanks.
I imagine Peter, I'm sure you thought, but do you want to coach a conference or large-scale meetings?
I missed some of that, Councillor, but I think.
Oh, sorry. So as Councillor Coleman was just saying, have you considered the potential for conferences for the top floor moving forward?
Yeah, I heard Councillor Coleman. I missed some of what you said. Yeah, we are, and we've been pushing that hard. We employed a marketing company to canvass a lot of companies in Exeter, and we've struggled to get them to come out from Exeter. But when we do reopen, we have got quite a few local bookings, and I think one of the things, and it's just come out in some of the conversations, Councillor Arnott, is, I think let's try to separate out from the delivery of Queen's Drive the support and management with LED. And I think when we move on to the LED monitoring forum later this week, one of the roles I think the council can help us play is by promoting Ocean with local businesses, particularly in East Devon, for holding their conferences and seminars and working meetings here, which go very well, and we've had quite a few, but obviously they've dried up and stopped for the moment. But at one point in the future, I hope that we will get back to a new normal, and we can encourage between us local businesses, chambers of commerce, and people like that to come to Ocean and use the top floor for conferences, which we have done quite a lot. And obviously the council have held quite a few meetings, exhibitions there as well. So it's something I'm keen to get back going again once we reopen properly.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for that, Peter, and for everybody who's contributed to this. This is really just to note this report and to thank Peter for giving it. It's a tough time, I know, for LED at the moment, and it must be very stressful. I just want to doubly stress that, of course, we must be advised on Ocean, because we're looking at the Exmouth seafront and Queen's Drive. So for us not to be across it would be an omission, but look forward to many more positive engagements like today. Thank you, Peter, very much for your report and for answering questions so frankly. So now we go on to the next agenda item, which is Queen's Drive. So looking forward to this summer and perhaps sooner on Queen's Drive temporary uses, and this is a report from Tim Child, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Firstly, just two issues before I get into the main report itself. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Angela Gordon-Lennox, our events officer, whose name is referenced on quite a few occasions within this report and has already met, along with myself, with the member working group. If it's okay with you, Chair, I will bring Angela in just to say a few words once I've finished introducing the report.
Thank you, Tim.
The second sort of bit of housekeeping, I suppose, in relation to this particular report is that alongside the report itself, we've had over the previous couple of weeks, we've had a couple of different approaches from groups looking to use either the Queen's Drive space or other land along the seafront. And if rather than us perhaps focusing too much on that in this particular agenda item and losing track of what we need to achieve from this item, if I could ask, please, with your permission, Chair, perhaps if we pick that up and do an AOB item at the end of the meeting, because I think there's some good examples there that just a couple of minutes would be worth talking through. I appreciate time's already quite tight. So moving on to the report itself. So the report follows on from the November meeting where I presented general considerations for 2021. Meanwhile, uses. At that meeting in November, we discussed seating, food, beverage, play equipment, events, and replacement of the seating and the existing walkways. I received some steer from members on those items at the meeting, but it's probably fair to say that the discussion steered much more towards the future temporary uses of the temporary car park site, and there were two specific recommendations from that last delivery group meeting in respect of this item. Firstly, not to proceed with the temporary car park and to provide clearer signage to other car parks on Exmouth seafront, and secondly, to instruct myself to research and report back on alternative options for use of a temporary car park land in consultation with Councillors Wright and Councillor Hookway. And sorry, those two recommendations then went to Cabinet and were supported back on the 6th of January. So since then, a site meeting took place shortly before Christmas. I think it was about a week or so before Christmas, with Councillors Arnott as chair of the delivery group, but also with Councillors Wright and Hookway, the member working group that was agreed at the last meeting on temporary uses. And from an officer perspective, both Angela Gordon-Lennox and myself attended. And that meeting, we discussed both the temporary car park site, but we also discussed the temporary uses on the main Queen's Drive space site. I'm going to deal with both elements separately, and I'm going to start off with the car park, the temporary car park site first, please. So,
Tim, can I interrupt very briefly? I've had quite a lot of requests from people. Can we call it the former car park site? Is that okay? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sending a clear signal. Thank you.
Okay. If I make a mistake whilst presenting this, do correct me, but I'll try and pick it up. So, former car park site. So a number of potential uses had been put forward at the last meeting, but also I'd received a number of subsequent emails from others. So for those of you who are in this meeting who'd sent me subsequent emails, thank you very much for those, and they've all been taken on board. So those uses are listed in points or A to N in paragraph 2.2 of my report, and a matrix setting out the pros and cons of each of those was prepared by a multidisciplinary team of officers. It's probably worth saying many of those uses that were suggested had already been considered in terms of possible uses on the main Queen's Drive space in previous years. But we also, in terms of the former car park site, we needed to consider potential demand, investment costs, competition with other existing uses along the seafront, and sort of general suitability of the site. There was a general feeling that some of those uses suggested could perhaps be better be served and perhaps be more cost effective through the event space at the rear of the site. We also liaised with the council's planning officers and also our engineering team in terms of the former car park site. Details in paragraphs 2.6 and 2.7 of the report. So having done that initial piece of work by officers, we then arranged a site meeting, as I've said, with councillors Arnott, Hookway and Wright. And working through that meeting, the outcome was that the preferred use by that group was for low-key fitness type uses as set out in paragraph 2.8 of the report. Now, if you just bear with me, my computer's rather slow at the moment. I'm just going to run through in a bit more detail the reasons for temporary fitness uses. So yeah.
Oh, you're back, okay.
Yeah, so I am back. So yeah, my computer's on the go slow, so apologies.
Yeah.
The preferred option at that site meeting was that the car park be laid to grass. In terms of fencing of the site, we wanted it to be inclusive, wanted it to be welcoming for people to come into the site. So if there were any fencing stroke demarcation, it'd be very, very low key. In terms of the temporary uses for the next season or two, as I said, it was low-key fitness uses. Key rationale for that being that it would fit well with the council's health and wellbeing agenda and consistent with themes in the council plan and statement of intent. Supports COVID recovery for small businesses and will provide much needed wellbeing opportunities for the community. It would complement the other offerings within the locality. It wouldn't compete with other businesses within the vicinity. Contributes to our tourism agenda, and Exmouth as a destination for providing additional activities. It also ticks the box around activities for those across different age bands, which was a key message that I'd taken from the previous delivery group meeting. We also know through Angela and the events team that there is ample demand. And yes, the capital costs for laying to grass for fitness type uses are significant. Depending on how it's done, you're looking at potentially between 30 and 40k. However, that's less than if you needed to put down a proper hard surface to an improved standard to the existing. Paragraphs 2.9 to 2.11 within the report addresses the demand for these uses, and also, which Angela I'm sure can pick up on in a minute, and also addresses the likely income potential of very indicatively between £2,500 and £6,000 per year, very indicatively. So it is a very low income, but nevertheless the uses, for the reasons I've just outlined, are considered good uses. The day-to-day management of the uses will be managed by the events team. Within paragraph 2.13, I set out the various activities that would be needed. Sorry, just bear with me. My computer was running too slowly, now it's running too quickly, and I've overshot the bit I was looking for, so apologies. So paragraph 2.13, I set out if members were to be supportive of these low-key fitness type activities on this land, what we would actually need to do to get this up and running. So we'd firstly need a decision by Cabinet for this change of use. We would then need to put in a submission for an application for temporary planning consent. The planning service have indicated a period of 4 months from submission to determination. So therefore, even with a fair wind behind us at this stage, we're looking at June before a determination. With the proposal that we could market the site for those uses in the intervening period, and then be up and running in, I say July in the report, we might just speak that it might be June. The slight fly in the ointment is the seeding or turfing of the space. Clearly you wouldn't really want to be doing that in June when hopefully the weather will be hot and dry. So the report addresses the potential to do that at the ideal time, it should be March, but it would be at risk, and that would be very much a member decision. So I've sort of addressed the former car park site and the initial officer deliberations, and then the discussions and outcomes from the member working group site meeting. I'm now briefly going to move on to the temporary uses of the main site, which was the other discussion at that site meeting. So I set out within paragraph 3.1 the proposal for the events team through Angela to manage the temporary uses on the site, reporting back through the delivery group, and also to be overseen by me. So that's a big change to previous years, where the event side of it has been picked up within our own service. Angela, I'll leave Angela to explain the reasons why. She can, I'm sure, do it better than me. In paragraph 3.2, you'll see that we're proposing that we stick to the same food and beverage traders as we have for last year, but to review the charging. There was some strong feedback from the last meeting about wanting to support those current traders who yes, had clearly had a difficult year last season. So there's a proposal we stick with them, but we possibly look at, whether it is right and proper to change the charging. In paragraph 3.3, I address events at the rear part of the site. What we're proposing to do is that communities and other organisations can deliver events. And I say other organisations, I'm also including commercial operations there. And with the council, rather than the council delivering those events in-house, as indeed has been the arrangement certainly in the early days of that event space. And clearly there'll be an income stream from doing this. Paragraph 3.6 of my report deals with the bar. With the bar not opening until July of last year, LED haven't benefited from a full season of trading, and therefore the proposal is that we renew the existing agreement for the 2021 season. And finally, 3.7, I deal with the capital costs for the remedial site works needed for this year, which range from between 15 and 35,000, depending upon the extent of the works that are done, whether it's limited to just the seating areas or also the walkways. I do, particularly with this report, want to draw members' attention to the financial implications identified at the beginning of the report. With the former car park site, we look at, we need to be mindful of the loss of income, plus also the capital costs, the seeding or turfing, and also some maintenance costs through street scene. And in terms of the Queen's Drive space itself, we need to be mindful of the capital costs. Worst case scenario, and this is worst case, but it is right to flag this up, is a £73,000 capital cost and a 19,000 hit on revenue. Now that's the worst case scenario, and that's if you add up the figures that Simon Davies included in the financial comments, they're the figures that we come to. So now, finally, back to the recommendations. The IT is very slow, just bear with me.
No, I'm also trying to get back up there. So let's go slowly together, Tim, and see who gets there. I'm there. How are you doing?
You're faster than me. Yeah, so thank you. I am there now. So the recommendations from this report are that the delivery group recommend to Cabinet A that a temporary planning application be submitted for up to 2 years on the former car park site to enable the area to be grassed, seeded or turfed and used for fitness uses as per this report. There's a note there in bold for members, which is around the seeding stroke turfing, and that's something for members and for this group to consider, both in terms of the risk of doing those works up front, but also possible issues around reputational damage, I suppose. So it's something for members to consider, although for reasons I've said already, to be planting grass in June would be far from ideal. And second recommendation, that the temporary use of the main Queen's Drive space for the 2021 season progresses as detailed within the report, paragraphs 3.1 to 3.8, in respect of arrangements for the bar, the traders, the event and replacement of the seating areas. So they're all the specific paragraphs that I've picked out and outlined just now. Before we open this up to members, can I please just ask, if it's okay with you, Chair, for Angela just to say a few words, please?
Over to you, Angela. Hello.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott. Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Oh, you're a little bit faint. Can you move sort of forward or whatever it might do?
Let's try this. How's that?
Thank you.
Good. Good morning, everybody. Tim asked me just to give a little bit of background, just so
it kind of makes sense as to why I'm involved. So I joined the council in April of last year to promote our public realm spaces and facilitate events across the district in line with our health and wellbeing agenda, to support local businesses and to encourage further visitors into the district. The team and I were able to support event organisers in line with COVID secure guidelines throughout the season last year, and inquiries for events to take place when guidelines allow still continue. It's relevant today to say that a large proportion of inquiries have been in relation to wellbeing activities such as outdoor fitness classes, boot camps and the like. The events team are well placed and experienced to manage the marketing of and also the administration of bookings related to Queen's Drive space, in line with the processes that we already have in place for event spaces across the district. So yeah, I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but hopefully that explains a bit about me and my role.
Thank you very much, Angela, and welcome. I know you've been there last year as well, but welcome to the team, and thank you in advance for the thought that you've done already for this summer, and good luck this summer. Tim, thank you as well for a really excellent report. I think it offers a very clear explanation of the potential, also the financial challenges. I suppose the one question I'd have, which is unanswerable, isn't it really, is at worst we could lay some grass in order to facilitate these events, but then we might lose the whole lot if the summer season is cancelled for lockdown. But there's kind of nothing we can do about that, is there?
No, there isn't. But then I suppose in the back of my mind, we also need to be aware that the temporary planning consent for the parking has expired. So that something will, by its very nature, end up happening on that land, and I suppose it's whether if that's better on a grass or on the current sort of mismatch of surfacing that you've currently got there.
So effectively, what we do is we would be investing in some grass seed, and you and me with our forks going down there for a couple of days trying to get it going. And that would run in advance of getting the planning application through. So that's a risk as well, but you know, maybe there's nothing else we can do. Okay, right, coming out to members who are not on the committee, please. First, Councillor Philip Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm a little bit perplexed by it. I'm perplexed by the fact that there's a temporary area of which we are looking to spend £30,000 to £40,000, take away from it being a car park, when there's an area at the back could have been used for this use, and then you'll lose the income that would be from the car park. So to me, the whole thing as temporary, if it were I think I'd be leaving it as it is, because what you do need, and as what has been said and many times on the start of this meeting going forward, is how if people are in lockdown, they're going to be coming to Exmouth in their droves. And I'm not sure, Chair, whether you have been to Exmouth when it's on a hot day about where they park. They park.
I first came, for a point of information, Councillor Skinner, I first went to Exmouth in 1968 and then was there most days in the summers throughout the early 1980s, and have been there with my 4 children hundreds of times in the current century. Thank you.
Right. Well, that's wonderful. So then you have got a grasp then of the car parking that takes place around Douglas Avenue, Mare Road, going up Mare Lane, going up Foxwoods and everywhere else, because there is not enough car parking. Let's just try to get some clear hand on what we're trying to do. We're trying to create space for people to come and enjoy both the seafront and the facilities of what we're putting together. They are going to come predominantly in cars, and they're going to want to park somewhere. If we don't create the parking, you actually cut your nose off to spite your face. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing or good thing or bad thing or whatever. What I'm saying is the timing of doing this now in unprecedented times, when you're going to be asking on the next point of agenda for more income for staff, I would have thought to be a little bit more prudent. We need to hold the line on what you've got and then move forward in years, perhaps next year or whatever, that the timing of this is just all wrong for me. And it's not something I've certainly, if I was sat in the committee, something I would be supporting in any shape, way or form. I would have thought the area at the back is something that you could have used for exercise. There's plenty of space there. I know how big it is. I was involved in that myself. And I don't think that the timing is now, Chair. That's my point that I'm making. And I think it's something that is premature.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe I need to keep outside the committee first, if that's okay.
Yeah,
so,
sorry,
Councillor,
a little bit premature.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you, Councillor Whibley. Councillor Eileen Ragg, please.
Thank you. Well, I would strongly disagree with those comments, because Mayor Road car park is vastly underused. And again, during the summer, I've seen just one vehicle parked in there. There was going to be signposting. That was decided at one council meeting, I think about 2 years ago. And I remember John Golding was going to take that on board. There was going to be signposting to direct people to the Mayor Road car park. All right, might be a little further for them to walk, which would be difficult for people who have mobility problems. But on the whole, it comes down to pure laziness. There's a huge car park there. It's being used, as I understand, for overnight stays as well, for camper vans. So I wouldn't associate myself with those comments made by Councillor Skinner. Plenty of car parking.
Thank you, Councillor Ragg, very much for that. Looking for any members beyond the committee who would wish to speak, and if not, coming to Councillor Joe Whibley, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think it's a really, really good idea to go with the report. I think people might have the perception that we're not thinking big and that we might have the opportunity to do more. But I'd argue, given the initial use for the as set out for the space, I'd argue that by turning a paved area green or a gravelled area green, that is a big idea. We're investing in green space, and while there may not be a huge amount of income to start with, I think it's a real statement of intent of what the space was originally meant to be, community land. And car parking cannot be the be all and end all. We do have a green agenda, and that decision is made anyway. We can't do anything about that now. And there was a suggestion from Daphne Courier a few meetings ago, I think, that we improve the signage to direct people to more relevant car parks to their purpose of visit, which I think is a really, really good idea. Finally, I've been working with the Tryhards, the award-winning Tryhards, who are a local community group who do fitness, and it's for sort of all income groups, all levels of fitness. So people just starting out, people who are experienced. They've been looking for a space to do their activities for ages. And while that continues, I think this will be a perfect place for them to do it. So there's definitely demand. I think it fits many, many parts of many, many different briefs, including the health and fitness one. So I will support the officer's recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I can see Councillor Aurora Bailey, please, with a raised hand. Aurora.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out as well, the car parks, the Foxholes car park is there, as well as the Mayor car park. And very often they're not used to the full extent they could be used. Now, going back to Queen's Drive space, which is what we're doing today, I'd like to go back to the bit, if you're going to grass that bit, I agree with Councillor Whitby that if we were to put the grass there and then extend the dinosaur park for the older children and do the Try Hards fitness there, because with this COVID, we are all struggling for our well-being. And I think if we did that while we're considering other things for the Queen's Drive site, it would be seen as delivering something. And also for the temporary food and putting the picnic tables there, I think it would be a good idea and something that we most probably could do with the COVID restrictions. And I think it would be a good idea, Chair. And then everybody would be happy. We don't want no more car parking there because we're supposed to be looking at climate change and all the different things involved in it. And car parking is not one of them. I think we need to take that on board, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Aurora. And just to confirm, as Councillor Wibley said, actually the issue of the car park, the former car park, was done and dusted through this committee and through Cabinet already. So we probably don't have to discuss that anymore. We are moving forward, and I think the challenge for us is, as Aurora has just said, we've got to do something for this summer. We just don't know about the summer coming either. It may be that this is a 2-year thing while we try and get the major items in place for perpetuity. So Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Councillor Bailey for probably almost entirely summing up what I was going to say, but there are a couple of other points I'd just like to throw in. I'm probably in the minority in that as an Axminster resident, I have very infrequently visited Exmouth, predominantly since I've been in portfolio post. But when you live in Axminster, you have Lyme Regis, you have Seaton, you have 3 major shopping areas within almost equidistance of Axminster. Unless you have a reason to go to Exmouth, there is no reason when you live in Axminster. But I've been there now. It's a gorgeous place, and I've been there with my grandchildren, my children, and I intend to go there a lot more often because I've seen what it has to offer and the potential it has. But in response to Councillor Skinner's point, having gone there, I've never struggled to find a parking place. What I have struggled with is the lack of signage. Now, when you're not used to being in Exmouth, you come in on the Salterton Road, which is where the sat-nav takes you. You are almost guided to the end by Ocean, and then you end up on this circuitous route. And you just drive around and you find parking, you park, you walk, you go where you need to. But I think coupled with this needs to be a project, and this almost ties back into what Councillor Skinner was saying about regeneration. Part of that is public awareness and signposting. We tell people where parking is. Other towns have done it quite easily. You know, they've invested in signage, they've invested in electronic signage. Yes, there's a cost, but you manage it. But what has been said far more eloquently than myself is we made a decision. I personally, and I'll be happy to propose this, is that we get on with the grassing now. You know, as a former handyman, I can attest to what Mr. Childers says. Planting grass in summer is almost a guaranteed, outcome that it will die. Or you spend your entire time there with inordinate cost keeping the grass alive. Plant it in March, it'll be there. And whatever we do on that site, we will have grass. Grass not only looks gorgeous, it's beautiful to work on, it's beautiful to play on. And even if it were left as grass, it is an amenity that people would use straight away. So the issue of what we do with the car park is gone. The former car park, it's just that. It's a former car park. I say we press ahead, grass it, when the time is right, when the weather's right, when the climate's right, and then we take it forward. But on the issue of parking, I think signage is something this group needs to consider in consultation with Exmouth Town Council, the District Council and the County Council. They're responsible for highways, to make sure that Exmouth residents and Exmouth visitors get to the right place in the most judicious way. And it's only a plus. It can only be a benefit for that town. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. I'm going to take that as a proposal for the recommendations just for now. Just to remind anybody watching who hasn't got access to all of the hundreds of pages of agendas and things, we made this decision as a committee not to proceed with a temporary car park and to provide clearer signage to other car parks on Exmouth seafront at our meeting on the 17th of November 2020. And that was, we also instructed Tim to research and report back on alternative options for use of that land in consultation with Councillor Wright and Councillor Hookway. So that was then agreed at Cabinet on the 6th of January. So that's our direction of travel at the moment. Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for clarifying that, because I think it's very important that you have clarified that, because I was going to say something similar. Can I thank Tim for the excellent report that has been drawn up? I, like Councillor Haywood, was thinking, well, we have to move forward on this, otherwise we're going to be talking for it for a very long time. And we have to be positive. I appreciate that we're living in extreme circumstances at the moment, but we have to think that things are going to get better. And I'd like to be positive and try to move this forward. I would like to see, as already been suggested by Councillor Haywood, that we get on and we plant the grass now, rather than leaving it to later on if the recommendations go through. I think that the recommendations have taken on board what members said at their previous meeting, and I thank Aurora Bailey for the comments that she's made, and which have been extremely helpful. And I'm also pleased that the comments and, if you like, recommendations have been taken on board about the people that used the open space last year and the year before. And I think it's important that we keep these on board, because they've helped us through a bad time. They may not have made a lot of money last year. So to, if you like, to thank them for what they've done for us and for the visitors and the residents of Exmouth, I think it's pleasing that we're going to offer them the facility to come back next year. I am a little bit concerned that you may be considering increasing the charges. I'd rather see them stay as they were last year for the reasons that I've stated before. But I'm really pleased that LED are going to be given the opportunity to use the bar. I think that's a very good idea. And I think the whole package, as Tim Child has laid out in a paper, are a huge improvement and a good way forward. And I think we have to bite the bullet today and make the decision that we're going to move forward with this and get on and get it started, and keep our fingers or legs crossed and whatever else you want to cross, that come Easter, yes, let's hope that people will come to Exmouth, because as has already been said, people aren't going to be able to go abroad so easily. And if you want to second it, I'll be happy to second it. But I think it will be a huge investment in Exmouth, and will give people a wonderful experience when they come to Exmouth. And I think it's well done, Tim, for coming up with the paper that you have. And I'm personally really pleased with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gazzard. So we have a seconder now for the recommendations following the proposal from Councillor Paul Haywood. 3 speakers remaining. Just you're all going to be very keen, so if you can keep it reasonably short, I'd be grateful. We've got one more quite big item to come. Councillor Ollie Davey, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it very brief then. Well, I really just want to third what Councillor Gazzard was saying. I think any increase in charging, which Tim alluded to, I think it should be very, very modest. If there's going to be any increase, I think it should be very little. And I think we should proceed with grassing the site. I think it'll send a very clear message And I know you're trying to move us on from the car park, but I would just like to point out that it was only ever temporary. And so for it to be suggested in the reports even that there's a kind of loss of income there, it wasn't going to happen. So nothing has been lost. And there is adequate parking. And in any case, as several speakers have said, we want to encourage people to come to Exmouth in more sustainable ways. So I want to endorse the recommendations in the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Councillor Chris Wright, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, don't want to drag on about parking. There is facilities along the seafront. I would know probably more than most what it's like on a busy summer's day down there. Signage is key to that. We're all lazy. We'll all take the first space we can possibly find. We need to move people. As one of our speakers said earlier, Catherine Causley, this is about a change. This is about getting people to do things differently. Part of that is directing people in the right way. We have a land train that runs people up and down the seafront. There's an opportunity for that to move people about. By grassing this area, there's the opportunity for that to be managed through the events team. I know, talking with Angela, there's some real positive vibes about that being able to be used this summer. We're in a very difficult situation for anyone in the leisure business to know what's going to happen over the course of the summer. If we grass it, if nothing else, it becomes an informal open space. We all need space. It's a key word we're all using at the moment. So even if it doesn't become a site that we can use in a managed way through the events team, it's another area of open space on the seafront. I believe another speaker, Daphne Courier, mentioned about the competition for space on the seafront and on the beach, perhaps, where families need to be able to go to another part of the site to have picnics and things like that. Even if it's just used for that and that alone, it's a statement of intent of our way forward to progress away from the perhaps not so joined up thinking that we found ourselves with. And I think one of the other interesting points is with the events team that front space is seen as far more commercially attractive to perhaps outside groups to use, you know, where they want their events to be seen by the public walking past. The area to the rear, I think, is going to be aimed more at community, where people are specifically going to that site for perhaps an event. The piece on the front, it's passers-by that may well get involved, that perhaps won't see that at the rear, as we all know, it being so protected. So I think we are where we are. You know, this summer is going to be difficult, whatever we do. We have to do something. And now is the time to get on with it. I wouldn't say plant the grass today. I'd say plant it as Tim has said, you know, the optimum time being the spring. And whilst there is definitely a cost risk to this, hopefully with the events team being so positive, and I was very impressed meeting Angela with what she was saying, that actually, despite all the problems we're all going to face this summer, that when we can operate it, that events team will have things in place to add to the offer to both residents and visitors to Queen's Drive for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wright, and thank you particularly. Your mastery of this subject is beyond anybody else in this meeting, so thank you for that contribution. It's very generous of you. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. Completely agree with everything that the speakers have said previous to me. I think I just want to make or propose one slight amendment, that the issue that keeps coming up is signage, and we should look to try and remedy that as soon as possible. So with committee's approval, could we please write to Devon County Council as the Highway Authority to improve the signage, but then also to the Devon County councillors for Exmouth to hopefully try and utilise some of those locality funds that they have at their disposal to boost the signage to this area. It's something that's obviously prevalent to their area. It can be used for these purposes, and I think it would be a really good use of their funds.
Thank you, Councillor Ledger. Tim, can I come back to you on that? Because obviously it was a request on the 17th of November meeting that we do look into how to get that signage clearer. What's the best practical way ahead for us to do that? Do we have to do it through county, or is there anything we can do ourselves on our own land, or how would that work?
Okay, slightly out of my sort of comfort zone this, but the recommendation went to Cabinet. Cabinet approved it. It then came out as an action for Andrew Ennis to pick up. So I suspect without the discussion at this meeting, it will have been very much about, in our existing car parks, putting a sign, something along the lines of, if you struggle to find a space here, there are other car parks further down there. It's probably more that than actually putting something on the public highway, which would require Devon County. But we can always widen that remit for Andrew Ennis to also liaise with Devon County in terms of not only does signage, do we do that within our own car parks, but also on any sort of access approaches, and do it in a holistic way so that their signage matches our signage in terms of directing people in the right locations.
Okay, Councillor Ledger, can you come up? I can see we need a line, don't we? A recommendation C there that commends that a way forward be found. Blah blah blah. Can you come up with something like that?
Yeah, no problem. Give me 2 minutes.
Thank you. And then to fill in as an entertainment before you do that, Councillor Joe Wibley, please.
Would you like a song or a dance? You choose.
Well, you choose.
Okay. I'll choose to say something dull instead. I think in terms of the parking, I think the idea of having it in the car park saying if you can't park here, you can park there, or wherever else is part of it. I think the thing that I'm fairly sure it was Daphne Courier, when she spoke, she had the idea of calling things a shoppers car park and a beach car park and then a beach overflow car park. So because people coming into the town from outside won't know what a mare is or what an imperial road is. So if you tell them what the car park is for, and again, so this would be county, I imagine. But if you tell them what the car park is for, they know where to go for the purpose that they're there for. So I think it's kind of a two-pronged thing. Was that entertaining enough?
That was invaluable. And now the song? No, right, let's save that one for later. See if we've got time under AOB.
I will write a car park song, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Nick Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with absolutely everything that's been said. Would just like to add in terms of signing people to car parks. A lot of people these days are guided by their smartphones. Is there any way that we can perhaps add signage to the East Devon app or some form of or council website, so that those people who use smartphones to guide them to destinations get the guidance on their smartphones, please? And I'm looking forward to the vote because I'd like a break in a moment, please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Noted that. In which case, can we make a note of that for the minutes, please? The suggestion that we do look to the digital and app means of promoting the alternative parking as well. Councillor Ledger, did you have a recommendation C?
Yeah, so it's just simply to write to Devon County Council to improve signage to available alternate parking, and that we further write to Exmouth County councillors to request locality funding for additional finances for this signage. Okay,
I think I understood all of that. Members, if none of you understood that or need it to be read again, please just shout rather than put your hands up. But if not, we have a third recommendation. If you can email that through, please, Dan, to Sarah and to Sue. So we've got that on the record. And with no more speakers, therefore, Sue, can you guide us through, or you or Sarah, forgive me, I'm not quite sure which way we're doing it, through taking the vote then on recommendations A, B and C?
Chair, could I suggest that you, first of all, make sure you have a proposer for the record and a seconder for the record?
I will propose that, Chair.
So we already had councillors Haywood and Gazzard proposing A and B. Councillors Haywood and Gazzard, are you happy to accept the recommendation C about signage as well?
Absolutely, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've got Councillor Haywood and seconded by Councillor Gazzard, please, Sue.
Okay. Can I suggest then, Chair, we have to do this systematically now. If you ask people to raise their electronic hand if they're in favour of the different proposals.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do it that way. Right, so can we now take a vote, please, raising your hand for yes, and then a cross for no. I think we do something here.
We can't do that, Chair.
Can we not?
No, we can't. We can't use the red crosses and green ticks anymore.
Right.
That's why I said if you first of all establish how many people are in favour, if you could then just go back. If it's not unanimous, if we could just check whether anybody wishes to vote against or abstain separately. Okay.
So I think everybody's voted there. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh, well, that sounds like it's unanimous, Chair.
It does sound like it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. So I didn't want to put my hand up in case you accidentally included me as a vote as well. So apologies for interrupting.
Okay.
But before we move on to recommendation B, we've got the issue of the grassing, of the seeding stroke turf. I've heard lots of messages of support to get on with that. Do we need to take that as a formal vote?
I'm happy to propose that, Chair.
Okay, proposed by Councillor Haywood. Councillor Gazzard, would you like to second that we get on with the grass seeding? Or we've got Councillor Taylor.
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay, so Councillor Haywood proposing, Councillor Taylor seconding that we get on with the grass seeding. So can we take a vote on that now by raising your blue hands?
Mr. Chairman, could I just add something, please? You may have a little difficulty, and I'm trying to avoid that. And that is that if you go forward with the grass seeding, I believe you'll need planning permission, will you not? If you do,
can I ask Councillor? Can I ask Mr. Child if he's aware that we need planning permission to?
We do. He said that. We know he does.
He said, and one of the risks was that, of course, it will be a retrospective planning application. On that basis, I don't have a problem with that per se, but what I will be guided against is that if you have members that are members of the planning committee that are now on your committee, on this delivery committee, and they vote in favour of this, they are actually predetermined. So I may suggest there may be 1 or 2 people, for the benefit of those people, they may want to abstain, not because they're against necessarily, but they abstain for all the right reasons, Chair. That's all I say it for.
Thank you. That's very good constitutional advice. Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Shall we go to the vote then on this about the grass seed with Councillor Haywood proposing, Councillor Taylor seconding, and obviously planning members mindful, of what's just been said. Do we have a Sue?
I've got 8 hands raised.
Okay.
Sarah, can you see any more at the moment? I think I can't see.
Oh, I've got a frozen screen, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I can see 8.
Well,
I believe there are 2 members of planning on here, so I think we're just following the good advice of Councillor Skinner.
Absolutely. Let's just make sure that's recorded then that the two members of planning have abstained. Who are you, the two members of planning who've abstained? Do you want to shout it out?
That's
Councillor
three
Coleman,
actually, Chair.
and Councillor
Myself,
Davey.
Councillor Whibley and Councillor Gazzard.
Okay.
Just a little bit of advice, Chair. It might be a good idea if you weren't to mention about the reasons why they would be abstaining. Otherwise, it still works into premature. Works into a predetermination. What they do is entirely up to them.
Yeah, I think
Say
they've
no more.
abstained. I think they've abstained. So that's probably. I think that covers it. Thank you. I'm sure our chair of planning, who's observing the meeting, will have noted all of this. Right. Thank you very much. So let's move on now to our last major item, which is agenda item 9. Again, it's Tim. Obviously, inviting you to keep it reasonably brief. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Can we take a 5-minute comfort break? Because clearly there are those in need, and lots of relieved faces. So if we meet back here at 12:10, please, 10 past 12. Thank you very much.